Good morning. Welcome to our Spain. How's it going, Gaetano?
Bien, Tanya, et tu?
It's
Yeah, it's
going
good.
great today.
It's going great. It's
I
hot.
bel It is hot. I believe you have an our Spain for us, so that'll cheer us up, hopefully.
I do. It was a pleasant little surprise. We this summer the kids and I went down to Andalusia for our
Ooh,
summer holiday,
ooh la
and we
la.
were on the Renfe trains. The state-owned
Mm-hmm.
train high-speed train system down there. And I went to the food car to get snacks and sodas for my charges, and they had a big trough of headphones for free.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like El Cheapo headphones. And so I put my claws, and I now, in retrospect, am mad at myself that I only got three because who can't use more of those?
Right.
And this leads to what our topic is back to school, because one of the things on the list is headphones for their
Check.
devices. Yes.
And they actually sometimes I find these type of headphones last way longer than anything else that you buy for some reason, like the ones you get
Right.
for free, right? So maybe it'll last the school year. You never know.
You never know. I mean, and if it doesn't, it was free, so I'll be really happy. So,
So then you'll be like, girls, we need to go on another trip because I need more headphones.
right?
That's a good one. I like that. Gotta love a free set of headphones. And
Right.
like you said, we are jumping into schools today. So, everything we know about schools in Spain.
Everything we know, what we went through, we don't know it all. We just know what we know. So we will talk about public, even though that's not our forte, and
Yeah.
concertados, but we do know private. So we can give you that
And that is the
information.
three, since you mentioned them. We have three different types of schools here: private, concertado, and public. The private and public kind of speak for themselves. The concertado is like it's a semi-private, and it is partly funded by the government, partly funded by you if you go there. But it's incredibly cheap. They're kind of like 100 euros or 150 euros or something a month, probably. They
Right.
can be more real religious based, but they're not all religious. Obviously, some. I mean, it's sort of like the Catholic schools in America. Like, they're like a quite a like sort of private. But they're not all Catholic. They're not all Catholic, but they have a little bit more autonomy to do what they want because of the semi-privateness of them. So you might find ones with some English programs, or ones that are taught, here in Valencia, you might find maybe ones that are taught in Spanish versus Valencian or something like that. I mean, so there might be some little things that you want that you might get out of those.
Right. And I think in the bigger cities like Madrid and stuff, you'll find more with the bilingual. It's just the size of the
Probably,
city
yeah.
the population warrants more diversity in education, right? But yes, they are here. And I guess the best way to explain it would be kind of like the charter school system too in the States, right? You have to apply to them. You don't just go to them, but they get the money, but they have more control over the curriculum.
Yes,
Right.
but
So,
importantly, you do apply to them here anyway. The ones that I have experienced in looking into, you do apply in a similar way that you would apply for the public school system. So they're not completely private. So when both of us have our girls in private schools, you go to each school, you either get in or you don't get in.
right.
In with the public and the concertado, like for instance, you could apply for a concertado and not get in, and you would end up in a public school, or
Right.
something like that. And then everything, you're applying for everything in the spring for going in September. So whether you're in a private school, a concertado school, or a public school, that's the case. If you're doing the concertado or public, you must have your padrón here already, which means you must be living here, and you must have gone to the city hall and got your padrón, which says, hey, I live at this address. And that's in a government approved piece of paper that you use for schools and you use for a number of other things.
Right.
But you will need that. So you won't be able to just like apply for a concertado school from America or England. You need to, come here, get a place to live, get your padrón papers, and then get into the system. So that's a little bit of something that I don't know how people are doing this. And I would love at some point that when we get into interviews to talk to somebody about somebody who actually applied to a
Right.
concertado school or a public school and how they did it, because most people are coming in the summer, and if they're being really organized, they might come at the beginning of the summer so they can get all their stuff together by September, but you've missed the enrollment period at that point.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know what happened, so can't talk to that. Tell us a little bit about how you did yours, and then I'll get into the crazy 3-minute of how we did ours.
Right. Well, we had, as I said before, we had planned this move for, we had planned it out for a good 2 years, I feel like, it was like, let's do it. Is the reality setting in? So we came to visit a year before, but to do a scouting trip. But the 3 to 4 months before that scouting trip, I hadn't decided on Valencia yet. So I was doing like Zoom interviews or Zoom meetings with schools up and down the Spanish coast, from Barcelona down to Malaga.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So through that, that was helping me narrow down. And then when we did do our scouting trip, I had narrowed it down to the 4 or 5 schools that I wanted to see in Valencia in person. We saw those, and then I applied to 2. And I will say that was really beneficial, and the trip was kind of superfluous. The trip was really about getting my kids less nervous and on board, and let's just kind of like make sure. But even when we were on the trip, I'm like, we don't really need to do this trip, but it was fine. But I will say the top 2 schools that I thought were going to be my top 2 were my top 2 when I arrived. So that was good. I mean, I was glad that I did my research, that I was proven that I did.
Yeah, and lucky that nothing happened on your scouting trip that you're like, oh my God, this is so absolutely not where I want to be, which obviously would be a concern.
Yeah, that would have been really bad.
That would be bad. I mean, that is an incredibly organized manner of moving, to which I'm sure most people would aspire to, if I was to say that's kind of the dream.
And your situation was a little, I would say, a little rushed, slightly rushed.
If you want to take your situation and take out all the time that you had and put fly by the seat of your pants at the end of it, that's what we were doing.
Oh, okay. That's
basically opposite, basically, is what we did, which is we realized we had to move because Brexit was happening, and that was our residency was based on us getting here before England exited Europe. And we had been talking about moving, but we really hadn't been talking about it enough to actually have any sort of plan of any sort.
Okay.
And we had just sitting around. We had kind of, there was a point where we sort of decided on Valencia, but when we decided to move, it was like, we literally have 2 months to get this done.
Right.
So we have to fold up everything here. We have to get on a plane, and we have to be over there. That was, because when you do residency versus visa, you have to be there to do it. So we literally had to just pack everything up and get over.
So that, in retrospect of all of our other episodes where we've talked about this situation and the purging and all that stuff, that it makes sense that you only came with suitcases. So you didn't have time to get movers and a shipping company. If you wanted to bring stuff, you're like, we got to go and we got to leave now.
We've got to go. I mean, had we had things there that was worth it, yeah, I'm sure we would have figured it out. But at the end of the day, we just had to move. So what ended up happening too is we were moving mid-year. So we weren't like, oh, we're going to interview schools, and then we're going to apply, and then we're going to wait, and then we're going to come over in the summer. It was like, we're going to be there in a month. So, so we literally did 2 interviews, and then we applied to the school that we wanted to, but they were like, we don't have any spaces. And this was like January. And they were like, well, you can apply anyway, get on a wait list, and we'll see what happens. Because at that point we were thinking, well, we've got, and then I sent all the information in, and then literally the next day I got an email saying she's accepted.
Okay, when they just told you they didn't.
Great. I mean, I can't tell you how relieved I was, because anyone that's gone through the process of getting their kids into schools and trying to pick a school versus just living somewhere and realizing that you've got a house there, so that's where your children are going to go to school and you're not thinking about it. If you're getting into this kind of situation where you're picking private schools, or you're moving and trying to pick a public school and trying to find a place to live near a public school, it's all very stressful. Like, it's just, it's all over the place, and you don't know where the chips are going to fall, right? So that was kind of where we were. And plus with the time frame, I'm freaking out. Like, if we get there and there's no school and and so, and then when she got accepted, I was like, okay, done. Everything else will be whatever else it is. And yeah, so we landed, then we did a tour of the school. So we landed on a Monday. We had a tour of the school on Wednesday. She was supposed to start on Monday, but we went into lockdown on Saturday.
Right.
So it was like, okay, done. But we were in the school.
It's bringing back all those memories of. I remember just that week back in
Right.
March 2020,
Yeah.
back, and they're like, oh, we're not going to shut down. I was like, oh yeah, we are. And then like the next day, you're like, yeah, you're not going to the grocery store ever again as long as you live without a hazmat suit, right? So you're bringing back trauma. You're being
Yeah, I'm
triggered.
sorry. And our lockdown here was very different from what you guys were doing in the States. Let me just say, we were locked down in our homes. We were not allowed
Right.
to leave except to go to the grocery store or like the hospital. That was it. So when we were doing the Zoom like everybody else, the Zoom school. So, you know, basically I'm thankful that we went into an English speaking school because I think it would have been incredibly difficult to not do that with the Zoom, and I'm sure everybody would have been very helpful, but it would have been extra stress for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And extra stress for Zena trying to do Spanish school over Zoom. I mean, you're just not gonna, anyone that's tried to learn a language, I mean, you're not doing it over a Zoom really
No.
without a lot of, I mean, it would have been, we may not have still been here if that had been the case, I think.
Yeah, she's new. She has no connection to anyone. It would have been a really hard transition to, and you're not going to get the support because she's not going to trust anyone. There's not going to be any sort of, and that, you know, trust in meaning like I trust what you're saying. I trust that you understand what I'm saying. That like that kind of base level trust, right?
So we had obviously very different scenarios, but we sort of ended up in the same spot, which is an English speaking private school. And I think in my opinion, I think they're all very good. I think if anyone picks any of the international schools around here, I haven't heard any complaints about them. They all seem to be relatively on par with each other, except like some are in the city, some are outside the city, some of them have better sports, some of them have better music. So if you have a kid that's talented in some area, that might be a reason to pick one over another. Otherwise, you're probably looking at location.
Right.
We have a couple of American schools, a German school, a French school,
and then
like a couple of Montessori schools.
There's a bunch of British schools.
And then everything else is British. So even the Montessori schools are based on the British system. So I was out. I didn't want the British system. So we were very limited on what schools we could go into. And if she hadn't got into one of the American schools, I think we would have probably ended up in public. But, you know, that's one of those things. Just figure out what you need. But I think all the experiences that I've had and my friends have had here have been really, really good. So I don't think anyone needs to worry about the quality of the schools and the education here.
The biggest part would be, you know, I would like to say this is it's the transition is going to be the hardest on, you know, all of us. But the kids, especially if they're coming from America and they end up going to a British school, they're taught completely different. Everything's different. So, you know, parents should be aware, like even when you switch schools in your own country, there's a transition period where the kids are learning trying to get social, that grades can suffer, things can suffer, our emotions can suffer. Expect that to happen here, and it might be a little heightened because it is a foreign country. There's different languages, and the schools will tell you, and it's been my experience from people I've talked to and ourselves, that don't worry about the first term grades. They will catch up because they are learning. It's all overwhelming at first, especially coming from American to British. My kids were like, what is this all about? You know? And then it was like, oh, everything's fine. We made our friends. Everything's good. Oh, they do speak English. Like it's like the eye opens, right?
Yeah, I think the social aspect. I mean, education, that's your kid. You know, however that works out, you'll figure it out. I think because they're not gonna fall behind if anything gets sticky. The teachers will help you and you'll figure it out. You know, but socially, I think you'll be surprised how easy it is for your kids to integrate into another school, because if you go to an international school, they already speak the language. You know, if they're going to a different school, you'll find that, you know, your kids just need a friend or two, and then they're like golden, you know?
Then they'll be fine, right?
I think it really does work that way.
And I will say, I was telling my girls before they started, I said, you know, don't worry, you will make friends, because they do make friends, but you're going to have this small expat group that will glom on to you when you arrive because you're a new expat. So they're going to want to like broaden their pool, right? And then for the locals, they're like, oh, where are you from? Like you're still new and exciting because you've come from a different country. So I think there's more open arms than I think you would think in some other situations.
I think so, because I think especially in the international schools, everyone's been in that position probably very recently. So I've been really, really impressed with how Zena's school managed new students that came in. They were always really welcomed and cared for, and help to get friends. Exactly the same thing happened to Xena. I mean, I can't talk to the grade thing because of when we landed. I don't think anyone was getting good grades in 2020.
Right.
So there was absolutely no way. I mean, they were just given A's, I think. I don't know what happened at the end of the school year of the 2019 to 2020. So I have no guide on that. So we were also going from American to American. So it wasn't a change in teaching and education. So for us, it was, I didn't experience any of that. And I think what I've noticed in Xena's school is that it does often, how the makeup of the class will make a big difference. Like Xena's class is fully international with people from everywhere. The grade above her is almost completely Spanish. And then the grade above that is a complete mix. So it's like every grade will have a different mix, and like almost all of Xena's friends are Spanish, but they all speak, perfect English. But it's funny how the makeup of the classes are very, very different from grade to grade. And you don't know which one your kid's going to land in. But we've had a really good experience overall. I've seen a lot of people, new people coming in, and it's never been an issue that people have not made friends and not been welcomed in and helped. So that's been a really good experience overall, I think.
And what I would say, what's probably it is a difficult thing for families with more than one child, is trying to get your kids into the same school because there's limited spots. We were lucky. I will say my tip was, we came to see these schools in October. In November, I had applications in. And they're like, you don't have to do that now. I'm like, no, I want them in. Like, I was like, let's be on top of this. First name on the list, you remember us. That was kind of like my trick. But trying to get, there was a school that we went to, and they're like, don't expect your two children to be here. And another school was like, we'll have space. Don't worry about it. So that was a different time.
Yeah, so it totally depends, right? And we'd had friends that have had one kid in one school and one kid in another, until a space opened up, and they were just like open to whichever school gets a space first, the other one's moving over. So they've just kind of done that, and that's also worked out. And I think another thing which leads into why we're moving schools now and having another stressful experience of like, let's do this again because it was so much fun the last time. All the international English speaking schools will tell you that your children will be speaking Spanish within 6 months or whatever, and everyone's going to get integrated and it's all going to be wonderful, and the's going to be
heard that too?
Little birds flying around everybody's heads, and this is not the case. I don't know anybody that's come in and learnt fluent Spanish to the degree that I would expect it living in the country, and to what I thought we would have. I was like, yeah, we're going to come in and we're all going to be immersed and we're all going to learn, but we don't speak Spanish at home. And she's learning in English. So where is the Spanish coming in? I mean, she's done gymnastics and she's done some extracurricular stuff in Spanish, and all of her friends are Spanish, but they all speak English, obviously, because they've met in a English-speaking school. So her comprehension is really good and she has some good Spanish, but it's nowhere near the fluency that we wanted for all of us, but especially for her.
And that we were hoping for and promised. Because I will tell you, all those schools that I interviewed from the entire eastern seaboard of Spain told me the same thing. Oh, within a year, they'll be fluent, 2 years tops, but if they're really motivated in a year, and then they'll be matriculated, because all these schools still have classes that are taught in Spanish. Yeah. They have the Spanish humanities, history, that kind of Spanish, the baccalaureate
for the
classes.
Spanish kids.
Yeah. For the Spanish kids. And they're like, oh, within a year or two, they'll matriculate into those courses. And then after a year of school, I'm like, that didn't happen. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's not possible. I'm like, but you all told me, and not just you, all the schools. All the schools told me that I'm going to have these international children that are going to be able to get a job out of at the UN the day they leave campus, right?
Yeah, and we haven't had that experience. And the only one kid that I know that has actually managed to do that is a child whose English is their second language already. So they already have a bit of a talent in languages or experience in learning languages. And then on top of that, they do a ton of football outside of the school. So they are immersed, literally immersed. The kid is in Spanish in, 3-4 days a week doing football and doing weekend, trips for matches and all this kind of thing. So, I mean, that kid has learned Spanish fluently because they've been immersed in it. But if your kid's not doing something like that, it's just really not going to happen. And especially if you don't have it as a parent, it's very hard to even know if your kid is learning. And that's kind of what I ran into, which is what I didn't realize she wasn't getting the Spanish in school, because how am I going to test it, right?
Right.
So it took me a while to realize that it wasn't really happening the way it was promised. So that's why we're moving her now into a Spanish school. It is also a private school, but it is a Spanish school. But that we're moving her into that now because she's 13 and we feel like we still have the time. We literally only just have the time to do that now. And but I 100% feel that if she were to stay in the English speaking school for another 5 years, that her Spanish might improve to some degree, but would never be fluent to the point that she should have after spending 10 years as a child in a country. You should be fluent.
I agree. And if we could have moved here 2 years before, then I would have looked.
You would have done the same thing.
Yeah, and there was a school. There was a concert. It was more. We forgot to mention there are these hybrid private concertado schools that are more expensive. They're like $400 or $500 a month, but you apply to them, like you can apply them without a padrone, but they get more government funding. One we looked at, and I loved that school, but they also built it as bilingual. And when I got there, I was like, this isn't bilingual. And I realized for my oldest child, that was going to be too hard because it's such intense classwork coming them way, and all in Spanish. If she was 2 years younger, I would have been like, yes, that would make sense, right? She can the math and all that can falter while she's building up the language, and then like burst through the doors knowing all of this stuff, right? And I was like, oh, so it is what it is. I can't change it. But
I think that's sort of the case. I think at the time for us too, it would have been really, really hard to go straight into Spanish. We probably would have managed it. But I think, funnily enough, realistically, things like math, which are the sort of the things that we worry about, they're the same in every language. So that's not where they're going to die. They're going to die trying to write essays in Spanish and trying to do biology in Spanish. That's where it's all going to go downhill, right?
Trying to read Don Quixote in the original language, right?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, kids do it all the time, and I wish I hadn't been as fussy about it, really, because I think it would have been an easier experience to do it when she was younger. But now we've been here, she has a bit of a base. Maybe it's easier now. Who knows? It's very hard to know. But my only point of bringing it up is just be aware that if you go down that road, that your kids will not be fluent in Spanish.
We want to clean a little bit of rose tinting off your glasses before you arrive.
And that's the end of that, because everything else is fun. And that's not, I mean, if not everybody wants that either. Not everybody wants that for their kids.
And especially if you're only going to be here 2 years, that's your plan. Don't mess it up with a Spanish school. You're just going to really
that might be difficult. Yeah. So anyway, as far as applying, you apply, it's like everywhere else. You're applying in the spring. You're going in September, and I think it's very, very similar as to other places. It's just figuring out what kind of school you want and what kind of education, and figuring out what your children need, if they need something special. I think like everywhere in the world, if you have a child with any kind of special needs, including they're so intelligent they need extra stuff, I mean, that's something that you need to talk to the schools about to find out if they actually offer those things.
And there are private schools with their services vary. They cater to different.
Yeah, they really
clientele.
do. They vary a lot.
You do have to find that, and there is a lot of movement. I'm going to say a lot. There's noticeable movement within the schools. Families are leaving schools too because it wasn't the right fit, and they didn't get into the school they wanted, and they moved. So these spaces do open up as well. So it is, as we had said
and
before.
Also what happened in Zena's class is they've been expanding. So I mean, things have got more difficult. I hear a lot more about schools not having spaces now than when we got here. They've expanded some of their grades from 2 classes to 3 classes. So they're also, some of these schools are expanding to take on more children, since more people are coming and more people are using the schools, and it's become, I think Valencia as a whole has become more popular, right? So there's more people looking at the schools here. So I think the next thing really is like extracurricular activities. Like we've all had our kids in them since they were 0, and we want to bring that over here. And I think we've had a similar experience, except I think your school has more going on, but it's outside of school. Let's just say, for the most part.
Team sports, that kind of rah-rah, the culture of sport culture doesn't here, right? It's not the
Mm-mm.
it's not the jocks and the geeks. Like that kind of social strata isn't here. I mean, I think there's the kids who love football,
Well,
but they're getting their
I don't know.
sports
I don't
but
know that you could go that far. But yeah,
but I mean, there
the
isn't a
whole
cheerleader squad.
school.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
The,
But how jocks and geeks are going on in school, I have no idea.
No, I mean there is that, but I'm saying there is the social strata doesn't come. They're not wearing Letterman jackets. You don't see
No.
that kind of thing. And the extracurriculars, there. I mean, our school provides a lot. It has a lot of sports fields and all of that, and they have them before school, after school, and then during the lunch hour. And the
Mm-hmm.
ones during the lunch hour are more like amateur instruction, learning the sports, and then if they want to excel, then they come in before school or after school. And but they have some that are like teams. I think they do have matches with like the swim team matches with other swim teams, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, oh, this school's team is playing that school and we're all sending up to the game and everyone's
Oh
canceled Friday
yeah,
Night
no.
Plans. You're not getting that here. But I will say, like, their PE program is much more well-rounded than I had ever experienced in the States, because they have ballet and I mean, they're learning a
Yeah.
lot, at least in our school. I don't know what your experience is like, but
Yeah,
it's been a
we have like PE where they
mhm.
tend to break it up into maybe three parts or something, and they'll do like basketball and volleyball and football or something. So they kind of break up the year so that you're learning
Mhm.
different things for maybe a month or two and kind of break it up. That's the kind of the PE side of things. And then there is an extracurricular ish thing, but a lot of it's happening during school hours, because the school that we were at was not really into keeping the kids any before or after the end of this before or
Oh,
after the end of
okay.
school. So there was one thing that they finally did, which was like one day a week they had, if you were in football or something, the kids stayed for an extra hour or something, and it was an extracurricular thing. But that's an extra thing that you pay for on top of the education.
Mhm.
And then, but that was literally it. And then we had a great coach for football, and Zena was doing that for a while, and they were traveling and going to Barcelona for matches. And I mean, it was really, really fun. But again, it wasn't I wouldn't say it was highly competitive. They were happy for anybody that wanted to play to come and play. Like that was the
Right.
goal of that. It was really about people learning how to play and learning and being a team and all that good rah rah stuff, right?
Mhm.
But as far as like the kids that really really are excelling in any sports, they're doing it in leagues outside of the school, because that's where the competitiveness is coming in there.
Right. And my eldest is in ballet conservatory, and that's outside of school. But so
Yeah. I mean, that would have to be. I mean, that's a
yeah.
whole different thing.
It's
We did, like, we've done gymnastics and other sports at the local rec center, the Polideportivo, and then and that's like so expensive too. It's like €5 a month to
that
do
is
like
really, I don't know
to
how
do
you
like two classes a week, and then we moved to a gym, like a gymnastics gym, where Zena did that for a while. I want to say it was around €30 a month for
mhm.
that, where she did a combination of the silks thing and all gymnastics, and she did some competitions, and it was like
Well,
really
in this
serious.
city, it's considerably more expensive for subs. We pay 40 a month. So,
Ooh, well, there you go. Still not going to break the bank compared to what people are paying in America, I'm
oh,
sure.
I
But
think that would have
I
been
think
400 a month back in the States for silks. Who knows?
yeah, and then but I mean the difference is, I think I mean it's an age thing. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before. Like when you're outside of the city and living outside of the city, and our school in particular too, because it sounds like you have a slightly different bus scenario going on. They have they have buses coming in the morning and buses leaving after school, and they don't really have any extracurricular activities. So if your kid's doing anything after school, you're picking them up from school in your car, and then you're driving them to that thing and then driving them home. So
Hmm.
you're in charge of all the chauffeuring of your kids for extracurricular activities, basically. So it's really very much up to you. And I think
Right.
if you live in the city or the school you're at, where they might have some, I mean, that's a different scenario, I think,
Yeah,
right?
even
Like,
our school has a morning bus and and two late afternoon buses. There's one at like 6 and one at like 7:30. So the kids who are in the after school programs get it. Now, mind you, that bus system is not as extensive as the normal morning and after, the going to school bus, the
mm,
extracurricular bus. There's only like one
right.
or two routes that it
But
does.
that's cool that they have it,
Yeah, and you could drive to
right?
that bus stop,
Yeah.
which might be a lot closer, or meet your kid there. But if they're teenagers,
Yeah.
they should be able to get, especially in the city, they can get themselves home. And same with the city. A lot of, I mean, these kids who are in these sports, they get them home from school, and then they can get themselves to the soccer field in the Turia Park or where they're practicing. Now, if you're a suburb,
right.
suburb life here is like suburb life in America. You got your car and you got to take kids everywhere, right? It's kind of the scenario.
And I mean, and you can carpool with other people. I think people do that a lot. We've done that quite a bit, but there's nothing going on at the school for the most part. That means that it's all up to you to do it. And that's just the nature of it, I think. And I think like you said, the city life versus the non-city life is that proximity that you have to public transportation all over the place, that once your kids get to a certain age, you can stop chauffeuring them or walking them or whatever it is around to everything. That doesn't really happen if you live outside of the city, because they're not driving, so you're still driving them. and
so everyone knows, your kids are never going to drive here, so it doesn't happen until they're 18. They don't have independence. We've dodged the bullet of having to buy cars and car insurance at 16, but we also don't have the freedom.
Don't stress me out about the driving situation. Well, your eldest is getting up there, but yeah.
But yes, so there are lots of extracurriculars and that, but I think another thing we should discuss, which is very important and is met with great cheers by me and my daughters, and maybe jeers by others, is the uniforms, non-uniforms. We go to a uniform school. It's on the relatively strict side, not the strictest. Some of them here are strict down to the pencil case and lunchbox, backpack, and outer jacket they wear. My girls can choose a backpack and their coat. Everything else is, and their pencil case, obviously, but everything, their outfit, they have a couple shoes they can choose from. They've got a couple shirts, one pair of pants, a skirt, that kind of stuff. And for me, it's been good. My girls aren't clothes freaks anyway, right? So it's been heaven. They know what they're wearing before school. And then that's been great. The sticker shock on the uniform is high, but they are pretty durable. Yeah. They last until my kids outgrow them before I'm throwing them away.
I'm not quite on board yet. Personally, but we are moving from non-uniform to uniform, and I have to say, I don't really see it. Like, I think it's cute to have all the kids in uniforms. Like, I like that aspect of it, but it's expensive. I would not have spent what I've just spent on uniforms on back to school clothes for Xena. She loves clothes, and I've never ever had to have an issue of what she's wearing because she's always got it planned out. So it's never ever ever been an issue, and she loves wearing whatever she wants. So I think in our household, we're kind of like, I guess we have to, but not really totally on board of it, actually. I really don't think that it's necessarily cheaper, because I still have to buy her other clothes, because she still needs other clothes to wear during weekends and everything, so she can't not have the other clothes. Although I did maybe threaten her that she might need to wear her uniform like all weekend, all night.
I will say that my daughters stay in their uniform until it's shower time and bedtime. They come home and they don't change. My kids, and on the weekends they're usually in their pajamas. So until we go out, so we don't. My kids aren't into clothes like your daughter is. So
I don't see that happening. But maybe check in with me in a couple of months, because you might be right. The cost of, I got a ton of things, and this is just some other advice, is before you started a new school, get in touch with the school so that you can get in touch with some parents and get into the WhatsApp group, that type of thing, because I got a ton of secondhand uniforms as well. And I mean, I want to say I got about 75% of the uniform sorted in secondhand stuff, and I still spent over 200 euros buying skirts and shirts and things that we needed. So I don't know what the sticker price would have been if I had got all of it, because I think that's just absolutely outrageously more money than I would have spent on regular clothes. Absolutely, for me personally. I would
like to add to that in the Facebook groups, before we arrived, I had put the school name in Valencia expat group, and saw who had posted and reached out, also said, we're coming to this school, X, Y, and Z.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And someone reached out and said, we're moving back to the States. Do you want our uniforms? I have some PE uniforms if you want them. And she met me on the corner like we were doing a shady deal and had me a bag and shook my hand and went on her way.
I love it.
I don't even remember her name. Great. It was like a 5-minute meeting, and we got that stuff. And now that we're in the school, I will say that our experience is the uniform skirts are industrial grade plutonium. Those things are not destroyed. So we've passed down and been passed down to us. As they've been outgrowing, we've been able to pass it forward, and we've received from others. So you're not spending that uniform budget every year, and especially if you size up, depending on how quickly.
But your children keep growing. This is the other issue, right? So you are having to either find secondhand clothes or buy new clothes pretty regularly. So it's not just,
my daughters were the same. I will be honest, my daughters were the same. Well, my oldest ones, they stop growing by 14, 15. Girls do. So you could luck out there that they
that's
you
true.
size up and then they're good. And those shirts did last a good 2 years before they got holes. They started ripping at the seams. But if I would have bought regular clothes, I wouldn't have bought anything from Ralph Lauren holding up if they wore it every day for 2 years. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's true. That's true. The skirts, though, I saw, because we got a secondhand skirt, which was in beautiful shape, but the little buckle on the side of the skirt, with which there are two, is made of like a pleather, and that's all falling apart. So that's a bummer.
Did you look? So we have at our school. So look, what our uniform shop, they sell the buckles separately, so you could resew them on. See if you're
okay. Well, I asked El Corte Inglés and they didn't have them, so I might need to I need to bribe you to go get me a couple, and then we can sew them back on, because it's not holding the skirt together. That's the annoying thing.
Right.
Like, it's there, but it's more of a decorative, look. Really.
Right. It's a decorative.
Anyway, off topic. Off topic a little bit, really.
The wind blowing it up. But so anyway, so shopping. Where do you get the uniform? So at our school, they have the uniform shop in on campus, which is great, because if the kids rip a shirt, they can run down to the shop and buy one, and they kind of make it very easy. And our school shop has all the school supplies and erasers and everything they need is there, so that's been good. I know that some schools you can get online, and some have random like stores and strip malls. And then you went to El Corte. You want to tell the El Corte experience?
Oh my God! Well, Gaetano heard all about this yesterday and today, because so I think everyone can kind of has experienced this if they've started at new schools. You get so much information, right? Like, it's coming at you from, if you have friends in the school, they're telling you everything they know. If the school is sending you emails, and they're also giving you, if you're here, they're giving you pieces of paper and folders with stuff. And it's like, you feel like you're just in like a mountain of information, and you can't take it all in. So when you need something specific about something, you probably only end up with like half the information you need, right? Because that's the part that you remembered. So we had been given this nice sheet that was, here's the uniform. I'm like, this is so cool. And it said El Corte Inglés on it. So I was like, great, I'll go down. So we lugged ourselves down into the city, right? Which we don't do that often, to go to El Corte, to find out that it was the wrong El Corte Inglés. So and the woman there was so nice. So it's like, I was like, but my God, now we have to go to the other side of the city, to the other El Corte Inglés, because that's the one that services our school.
Right.
So then we couldn't even do that the same day. So we had to go back again today. So we've spent 2 days getting a couple of skirts and a couple of shirts and a pair of socks. But you can't get them anywhere else. It's not like we can't order them online.
So what color are the socks?
Nothing.
Because I give you a little tip. You can, depending on the color, you can get them at the Chinese stores, because that's where we get our socks from, for like a $150.
Oh, that's good to know. That's where we'll be going next. Yeah. So we got them with it, because I was like, we're here. And we only have a week left before school starts, so I'm not running around doing this again, you know. So I got everything that I needed, and we had got so much stuff secondhand that was amazing. So I'm like, that we can buy a couple of pairs of socks here. But yeah, I think once I get into the school, I'm hoping that maybe there is an online store or somewhere else we can get it, because when I look at the pictures of the kids, like on like their social media and stuff, I mean, they're not all in the same exact uniform, really, especially the socks and stuff. So there's some variety there. So they're probably one of the schools, like you're saying, that's maybe they have a uniform, but it's not totally uptight.
Well, I think also so at our school too, like they have old gym uniforms and new gym uniforms, right? So it depends, like because they are changing brands, and companies go out of business, so everything's not going to be identical, because they are changing vendors as well who's creating these things.
That's true, because the old school we had, we didn't have a uniform, but we had a gym uniform, okay? But they were very, very lax on it. So kids were coming in kind of wearing half the uniform, or whatever they felt like that day, because it was too hot or too cold, and they only had shorts but not the sweatpants, or the other way around. So it was all very loosey-goosey. And they had kind of, I think, kind of let it go a little bit, you know? And then eventually they decided to have a whole new uniform done with this online vendor. And it was awesome because they gave everybody a free uniform once.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which was really cool. But the downside or whatever, or the click to that was that every kid had to be in the uniform from now on, right?
The correct
so they were
one
like,
too.
we're gonna help.
Yes.
You're all gonna have it. There's no excuses. But here you go. So they did do a uniform change as well. Yeah.
Well, so I will just say to you and to anyone else, my uniform advice is 2 skirts if you have girls and 5 shirts. That way you only have to do the laundry on Saturdays, because there's nothing worse than trying to do laundry. And our first year, as we were building, because I didn't have all these shirts yet, I was like, I'm doing laundry on Tuesday and Thursday, and it was getting on my nerves. And now we've collected enough shirts that, you know.
That's awesome. And I have taken that advice, and that is what I went into El Court for, was to get up to the numbers that you had given me. So I am well, Gaetano, prepared for the uniform part of the school. And we shall see how it goes. And so that's the kind of the uniform side of things. Since we're in this aspect of what you need for school, the other way that schools differ is overall materials list. The school we went to before we got a perfect list of everything you need at the beginning of every year so that you could go get the exact amount of pencils. Sometimes that list hadn't been updated. We have a few things in the house that have never been used, like a purple musical recorder.
That's fun.
That I think is floating around somewhere. It might become a cat toy.
Or a dog toy. Be careful.
But it won't last very long if it becomes a dog toy. She might make some music while she's chewing on it, though. That could be fun. Yeah, so we have that. And then in the new school, there's no list, so I'm relying on friends, and as I said before, I got myself onto the WhatsApp group for her grade, and I asked questions there for what we need. But we did get a list of books because we are expected there to buy the books, but I'm getting some of those secondhand. So there is a system in all these schools for people to share things they don't need anymore if you can find it.
So our school we have to buy our books, and there's a list that comes out like in May the year before. So what's great about that is you don't have this like kind of back to school rush. I mean, back in the States, when I remember being in high school, it was like the week before school, everyone's down to the gymnasium buying books and all that kind of stuff. So this school, they don't have to, but they're not in the bookshop either. So you have to order them in May. But at that time, they give you a month to finagle deals to see who was taking those classes the year before. And then also they give you the ISP numbers. I think that's what it's called, like, you know, the thing. So you can look it up on Amazon by ISP. And they aren't about 10% cheaper, if not more cheaper on Amazon. So, and then there's certain things you have to buy at the school because I think there's like licensing, because they think they come with, like, some of these books come with like complimentary computer programs. But that has saved us a bundle now that we're in the system, right? Now that we're in the swapping system.
Once it does easier. Yeah, if you can somehow get into the system before you start, you can get a lot of secondhand things, I think. Like, I'm just lucky that I have a friend that's already in the school, so she's hooking me up with and doing some of the work, all the work, not some of the work. She's doing all the work of getting me into the secondhand system with people that she knows from there. But the other thing, when at the school we were at, we really didn't need a lot of stuff. They took care of the books. The list that we got was all just like notebooks and pens, compasses, and pencils and rulers and things that we needed. It wasn't anything big. And then also they were provided with a computer, and then you just had to sign away your life in case the kid like threw it out the window. But it was provided by the school, and it was loaded with everything from the school and given to the kids and everything. And they also had to sign a computer, care, I'm a responsible child thing that they had to sign as well. And the parents had to sign it.
Our school didn't. And I will say, unfortunately, our school is requiring us to have iPads. And so they're very expensive.
Oh, damn.
But the contract my daughters have to sign is with their father. So if they want to eat ever again, they will not ruin this iPad that are like twice the price.
And you have to buy the iPad, or the school buys the iPad?
It's our iPads. And we have to bring them to the school swiped. If not, they're going to swipe them, because then they load all the software and put all their security, which is great, because then it is only for school. They can't log on to other apps during the school year.
Yes, I think most of the schools have a pretty good system for that, but I have to say I'm sure the kids are smarter. So keep an eye on your kids.
Yeah, they still have your phone while you're
activities.
sleeping. That's how they do it.
Totally. But I will say, like, our school did, when they were bringing in computers, they did 1 year, and this was the year above Xena, so she wasn't in that. They did a year of iPads. And that was the last year they did iPads. Because I don't know how many of those must have got destroyed for them to realize that was a really bad idea.
Especially if your parents didn't buy it, to be like, you are not allowed to, only on the carpeted floors can you use that, right? So
Right, exactly. I think if the parents are buying it, you're probably a bit more, responsible maybe. But yeah, so then they moved to Chromebooks, which I think was great. And then in the new school, we have to buy them a computer, but it can be anything.
Okay.
So we're responsible for getting whatever level of computer. It doesn't have to be an iPad. It just has to be able to hold Microsoft
Suite, whatever it's called,
365 or whatever. So I think that's a good option, because then, so that's a variety of different situations that can happen with computers and lists of materials and everything. So the advice there really is to try and figure out what the school your kids are going to and how it's working, and if you can get in with some parents ahead of the summer or during the summer and try and figure it out. So basically, like right now with the books, whatever books we can get over the summer from other students that were in the year above, we get, and anything that we don't get, the school will provide and charge you for.
Right, right.
Yeah. So it's a system. It seems to work pretty well.
You'll figure it out. Unfortunately, you just have to figure it out again. It's just the way it is.
But I think now that I'm doing it again, I'm realizing, like, you get very stressed for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, there's a point where it starts to fall into place enough that you realize, okay, we're also new here. There has to be some level of expectation that we're going to be doing some things wrong and someone's going to tell us what to do, right? Like, it just can't all be perfect. So long as the kids in school, they've got something to wear, they got a backpack, that you're pretty good. You're good.
But what we also haven't talked about, and I think it's a good thing to talk about, is how they eat at school, right? Like, they do get fed, and we did talk about earlier, right, about the kids coming home at lunch. Did we talk about that earlier? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. So we're doing it's very Spanish to, if you live near your kid's school, for them to come home for lunch, which I think is awesome. When we first moved here, Jawad and I were out to lunch. Zima was in school, and just all these kids started walking by in uniform. And we were like, it's like 1:30. What are they doing? Shouldn't they be in school? Shouldn't they be learning?
I've been here 2
what's
years,
going
and that
on?
still shocks me in the city at like 1:30. I'm seeing all these kids in their uniforms and children running around. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be at school? And then I'm like, oh, it's siesta. They're at lunchtime.
That's not happening in the schools, the private schools outside of the city. So I don't know if that's the concertado schools maybe that's happening. I don't know if the big private really, like, fully private schools in the city are doing that.
Yeah, I have friends in the schools in the city and they go home.
Yeah, but definitely outside of the city, that's not happening. But that is a very Spanish thing. So with the school we're moving to, we're actually hoping to move closer to the school and have that experience. And the other thing that they do, a regular school day is about 9:30 to 4:30-ish, somewhere around that frame. And what they do for the first month, and I think also the last month of the year, but I'm not 100% sure, is they do like a half day. So Zena will be going to school from 9:30 to like 1:30. And then I think if she comes home for lunch, she'll be coming home at like 12:30 or something. Mm-hmm. So that's the first month. It's kind of like a soft in to the school of get the kids kind of in, but not overwhelmed in the first month.
You didn't have that experience at your old school, though, because we don't have that experience in our school. It's bye,
that is not something that we've had. No, it's full on from the beginning. Now, I'm not saying that they're not showing a lot of movies and things on the last week of school or whatever, but yeah, it's full on, and that's usually how it is.
Well, I will say at our school, the last month, June is a free for all month because all the exams are in May. So June is like, it's more like summer camp. They have all these like parties planned and activity days and awards assemblies. Like, there's not a lot of learning going on, but their bodies need to be at school, and that's when they have their going away trips and stuff. So it's a different experience of school's really out by, school's done by the end of May, but their bodies are still there for June.
That might be a British system scenario, because that's not what's happening in the American system. We have, I would say, the last 2 weeks maybe, and they probably have exams or tests up until the last week maybe, and it's really just the last week where they have They have the school trips on the last week, and if you don't have to go to them, you don't have to go to the school trip. But if you do, then you're off for 2 or 3 days. And if you're at school, you're watching movies and helping other classes with things in sports or something, or going and jumping in the pool or whatever. So that last week for sure is good. But we don't have the massive mock exam situations that you guys have from like 14 going on.
Yeah.
So it's not quite so serious, I think, towards that end. But it's similar in the fact that definitely the last week is, why are we here? And often, honestly, I will say from experience here, because being in an international school, like in the summer, like people just leave the country,
right,
or they go to another part of the country. So suddenly all your kids' friends are gone. If you're still here, they're gone. And some of them leave, and some of them will leave and not be here that last week either.
Right.
So it starts getting very like the very end of school, and the weeks around Christmas and spring break and stuff can get quite sort of light on students, I would say.
And that's another rose-colored thing. Like, we moved to the city. I moved us here and into the city thinking my girls are going to be just free floating around the city with friends, and it's going to be like so wonderful and for them. And our summer, like the summer, I'm like, kids, call your friends. They're out of town. They're out of town. I don't know. No one's here. And it's like, oh, because the expats, especially the expat kids, are going back to their country, or they live in Europe now, so their parents want them to see all of Europe, and the Spanish kids are going to their beach or their mountain house, and so people are coming and going. I think my kids are like, I can't keep up. I don't want to keep texting every day who's in town. I'll just watch Netflix.
See when people are coming back. Totally. Like, it was the beginning, and I was kind of disappointed because, we had this experience in the States where I've always worked from home, so Xena doesn't need to go to a camp, and she didn't really enjoy camps that much because it was just too much activity, and she'd like some downtime and this sort of thing. And so I was like, great, that I have to pay for camp. That's fine.
Right.
We'll create scenarios at home, and we'll have your friends over and da-da-da. But it's like everyone's at camp.
Right.
Right. And I was like, oh, we'll move to Spain, and then people will be there, like, hopefully, and we get here and everyone's literally gone. Right. So they're not even here on the weekends, which they were in the States.
Right.
So we're like, it's worse. But then people do sort of come in and out a little bit. But for the most part, we've found that people are either from Spain and they're going to other parts of Spain where their families are, or they're literally just leaving the country.
Right.
So we've done a bit of that ourselves, to be honest, but yeah.
So we did one of our tangent things again. So we forgot to finish our lunch conversation about how
the lunch. We didn't even talk about lunch, which, by the way, they have really good food here at the schools. Don't let your children tell you otherwise, because they will.
No, it's a gourmet. It's rice. It's they're only allowed fried food like once a week. They have fresh fish, they have salads, they have I'll say that again. Well-rounded meals.
They have a lot of regulations here that like will depict this. It's not just a school choice. It's like by law they can only have so many fried food, and they have to have so many
sugars
other things
and
so
all those things. It's nice. And then and our school, and I know for a lot of private schools, and I don't even know about the public schools, you're not allowed to bring lunch to school. Like, they are supplying it. And I think you had said to me before that I'm never on campus, so I don't know, but that the schools are pretty good at accommodating allergies. Has that been your experience?
So I've seen lists of allergies. So in the school we were at, we had a scenario where the younger kids were brought into the cafeteria, and they sat down and there were just trays of food in front of them.
Oh, they were served. Well, la-di-da.
It was kind of served, right? And then the older kids were allowed to walk through and pick what food they wanted, but the younger kids got that. But the allergy, the list of allergies on some of these trays that they were taking care of was astounding. So I think you can pretty much, I can't imagine the scenario that you would be allowed to bring your own food in, because it's private companies that cater to the schools and do the school foods, and they will cater for everything.
So does your school, your school's is catered? Because ours is, it's a full cafeteria with chefs and...
Ours is a full cafeteria, but it's a third party that runs that cafeteria.
Oh, who brings, and they cook, but they cook all the food there fresh and everything at your school? Okay.
Yeah. It's probably the same as what you have, I would imagine. It's a company that caters to most of the schools. There's like 2 or 3 companies around here that do all the catering, but they even, in our school, that company even renovated the cafeteria. It's like They're like, it's like they have a restaurant in your school, basically. They're fully in charge, but they're also in unison with the school and working with the school to do whatever the school needs. And so it's like and they have contracts with these companies. So they are well trained in how to deal with allergens and everything, and making sure that each kid gets what they're supposed to have. So yeah, you can't opt out of that. The only way in Spain that I have seen that you can opt out of having lunch at school is if you go home. And not all schools.
And then quickly to the kids, they have a almuerza or a morning snack too, and that's where our school you send that into school. They do have an option of buying like a bocadillo for or I have the option of ordering a bocadillo to be ready for them, and they have vending machines and that kind of stuff. So they do get a morning snack, because also their lunchtime is when they have these extracurriculars, so they don't necessarily getting that whole lunchtime to eat. They will be doing some of their extracurriculars during that.
That's interesting.
Because it's during the school day.
Oh, okay. Well, what are they supposed to do if they get like 10 minutes to eat and then they have to run off to do a sport?
They get like 20 minutes to eat lunch and then they go off to their sport. Because I think the lunch is like close to 2 hours. I mean, it's a long time, but the sport practice is an hour and they have to change,
Yeah, I'm very impressed. Like when we were looking at schools in America, they were running, the public schools there where we were running lunch from, I want to say, like 10 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something. To accommodate all the children. So you could be going to school in the morning and not having lunch until 3, right? Which is insane. Or you could have lunch at 10 and you would go home absolutely starving, right? So here, what I'm absolutely amazed at how they managed to feed the whole school within like a 2.5 hour period or something, probably between 12 and not even 2.5, maybe 2 hours. Like,
I mean, when I toured the schools, the sizes of these lunchrooms were astounding me. They are huge. They are accommodating.
So it's very impressive, and they're getting it done. So I would say that's you will not be disappointed by the lunch situation. But your kids might be, because they all are. I think that kind of covers everything. I think
it does. I mean, yeah, I think we've covered everything. Yeah. I
feel completely overwhelmed by the scenarios of getting into a new school. So we may have more to talk about once we're fully integrated into a different system. But I think that covers the private schools for sure.
Until the next time, Tanya.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next Poco a Poco. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Hey, can't get enough of us? Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Spain Podcast.
And on our website, ourspain.com, which we will be updating with exciting new things as we grow.
We would love for you to message us with any topics you would like to hear about.
See you next time.
Bye.